Lights, camera, action.
Hey guys,
Hey everyone.
welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for listening to last week's episode where we covered Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. If you didn't listen to it, go check it out. It was a fun one. I like covering that movie. First
did
Mission
too.
Impossible movie that we did, so it was a nice change of pace.
Mm-hmm.
But this week, we're going to be doing a sports movie. We're going to be covering an all-time classic, The Sandlot. And yes, we are going to have a guest in the studio. You guys know him. It is Jeff Strickland, our pastor and also sports movie expert. I think he owns more sports movies than I actually own of regular movies.
Honestly, it's probably true.
I think that may be true. But anyways, we're really, really excited to have him back in the studio today. He is such a great guest and we're looking forward to it. So you guys can look forward to that too. And until then, I think, Em, do you have some details and fun facts for us?
I do.
All right.
So The Sandlot was actually released on my birthday, April 7th
Really?
of 1993.
Yeah, so you would have been -7.
Correct. It was directed by David Mickey Evans, and I have quite a cast list for you. I tried to get all of the boys that are on the team plus some of the other major characters. So it is starring Mike Vitar, Patrick Reyna, Marty York, Tom Gyrie, I'm sorry if I said that wrong, Chauncey Lepardi, Shane Obedzinski, I think is how you say it, Brandon Adams, Victor De Mattia, Grant Gelt, James Earl Jones, Marley Shelton, Dennis Leary, and Karen Allen. It was distributed by 20th Century Studios. It has a runtime of 1 hour and 42 minutes. It's rated PG. Its budget was only $7 million. And box office total was $34.3 million.
Nice. I mean, this is a small movie.
Yes.
You're not going to expect this kind of movie to do 600 million or anything like that.
Right.
But it is a movie that is timeless.
Mm-hmm.
It is a movie that has continued to grow as time has gone on and is remembered as one of the greatest sports movies ever.
Yes, for sure. So starting off with my fun facts, I found quite a few for this one.
All right.
My first one is that The Sandlot was originally written for 9 and 10-year-old actors, but when they cast kids that age, a producer said that they looked like babies, so they ended up casting 12 and 13-year-olds to play younger boys.
Okay.
Next, the kids had to go to a 2-week-long baseball camp to learn how to, play baseball, how to catch, how to hit, how to throw, and things like that, which in the long run obviously made it a lot easier for them to film because it didn't take as many takes because they knew what they were doing.
Right.
Next, the fake chewing tobacco, because obviously it was fake. They didn't actually have kids start chewing.
They were minors.
Yes. So in order to make it look like real chewing tobacco, they made it out of licorice and bacon bits.
Oh, that had to have been so gross.
Those of you who have seen the movie, they end up getting sick because they were chewing tobacco.
Right.
But it actually made some of the kids throw up for real because of how gross it was.
I believe it. That is disgusting.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on what licorice it is, if it was black licorice, which is honestly for a lot of people, that's like repulsive.
I can't do black licorice.
I honestly kind of like it. My mom likes it. She got me to try it when I was younger, and I truly do not mind it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
But and I'm guessing it probably was black licorice to look like chewing tobacco.
Mm-hmm.
That and bacon, that is atrocious. So I am not surprised.
My next fact is that there was a man that sued 20th Century Fox after this movie came out, claiming that his former classmate, which was the director of this movie,
yes,
had based the character of Michael or Squints on him, and that it caused him embarrassment and humiliation. So he sued the production because of that, and a judge decided that there was not enough similarity to justify the lawsuit, so that basically meant that the movie studios could continue using characters inspired by real life people, and
Right. Well, there was actually even more to it than just that, because the original lawsuit was filed, I believe, in the state of California. And so, like, at the state level, they ruled in favor of 20th Century Fox. And
right.
so obviously that, like, hey, it's fine for them to do this. But it then got escalated to the greater California Supreme Court.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And they also ruled in favor of the studio, which was a really big deal when it happened, because it was the first lawsuit of its kind, but it had greater implications depending on which way they leaned, because, what does this look like for other movies in the future and whatnot? The California Supreme Court cited that it was well within the rights of the First Amendment to base characters off of real life events. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And so it was a big deal when it happened.
Yeah, I'm sure. I've just got a couple more. First, during a lot of the days that they were filming, it was like insanely hot, like upwards of 110 degrees. It got so hot that the actor who played Smalls felt like really weak and ended up like falling over and, but on the day they filmed at the pool, of course, of all days, it was freezing.
Yeah.
The water was only 56 degrees. And I actually noticed this when I watched the movie, but I didn't really put two and two together until I read up on it. But you can see Squint's teeth chattering when he's like
his lips
staring
are kind of
at
like
Wendy.
bluish, and his lips are chattering, or teeth are chattering. I mean,
it was because of how cold it was. And then my last fact is pretty cool. A life was actually saved because of this movie.
Really?
So a father of twin boys went unconscious at home one day, and the boys remembered seeing CPR performed on the Sandlot, and they performed CPR, which they had learned how to do from this movie, on their dad and saved his life.
Wow. That is extremely impressive.
Yeah.
Mainly because they didn't do any chest compressions.
Yes. Yeah. Which I think when I read up on it, I wish I could remember. It was this movie and then one other movie that they had remembered seeing CPR done on. So I'd imagine maybe they saw chest compressions done on another one. But yeah.
Wow. That is crazy. But that's super cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So that's all I've got.
Okay. Well, I have... My production details are essentially non-existent.
Okay.
There was no production details that I could find on any of my usual research websites. I actually went to the self-proclaimed, quote unquote, most detailed, blah, 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 whatever film website there is. It's like an archive of national films and whatnot. It is very thorough. I only have one production detail.
Okay.
Principal photography began on June 22nd, 1992 in Salt Lake City, Utah. And that is all that I have.
Well, I have something to add to that.
Okay.
One, I believe they filmed in California as well, didn't they? Or did they
Nope,
not?
It was all in Utah.
Okay. Maybe it just took place in California.
It
Maybe
does.
that's what
it
okay.
takes place in California, but the entire movie was filmed in Utah.
Okay. And then also, the movie was shot in only 42 days.
Really?
Really.
That is very interesting. That's very impressive.
Yes. Yeah, I had that as my my fun facts, but I didn't want to say it in case you had that written down. So
okay, cool. Well, that's all I have. So I'll go ahead and lead us off with how I would score this film on a scale of 1 to 100. This is a tough one, got to be honest, because this is a really good movie.
It's such a good movie.
It's just a classic movie. Like, just straight up, it's an all-time classic. There's nothing not to like about this movie. But, just, it's also not an epic film. It's not Interstellar. It's a baseball film about, some kids getting into trouble.
It's so hard though, because you could say this for pretty much all of the movies we pick. It's so hard to compare them, to like this movie. Like to Interstellar, you know,
Right.
like they're so different.
Yeah. No, it is. You're right. But just thinking about that, thinking about the whole scale and just kind of a gut feeling how I would rate this movie. Overall, I love this movie. It makes me laugh every time I watch it. Also, the soundtrack or score, I guess, I mean, is really good. Not that there's a lot in there, but just like there's some good tunes that come on at different parts in the movie when, you know, the rival baseball game or gang comes rolling up and stuff like that. Like there's just a few that like 3 songs probably throughout the film that just when it comes on, it hits and it's really good. But anyways, I'm gonna give it a rating of an 88.
Ugh, an 88?
Yes, it's a great movie. I love it. But going much higher than that, like I don't think I could go beyond a 90, honestly.
Really?
Not because it's a bad movie. It is a very good movie. But I just gotta leave room on the scale for, I mean, this is a low in scope movie, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
That's where my gut's at. 88.
Well, I think I'm going to score a decent amount higher than you. And it's not only because of this, but it's largely because this movie is very nostalgic for me. Like this is one of my dad's all-time favorite movies. And I remember watching it with him when I was younger, probably younger than I should have been watching it.
Yeah, honestly, rewatching it, there was a lot of stuff in there that I don't remember or that I didn't catch, which that's another discussion for another time for like parents and kind of filtering out what you allow your kids to watch and whatnot, because just like I said, like there was a lot of stuff in there that's probably not great.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I don't remember any of it. And it's really probably not that big of a deal. But
I'm sure
I think
most of it just went over my head as a kid.
Right.
Because I was watching this movie in like probably like 2nd, 3rd grade.
I think I saw this when I was like 5.
I might have seen it earlier
7,
too.
like definitely in that wheelhouse.
Yeah. So, anyways, so because of that, because it holds a special place in my heart simply because I just remember watching it with my dad a lot. And I mean, my dad is very reserved and quiet, and this movie would always make him bust a gut. And I just like, you know, I always loved hearing him laugh because you didn't hear it like a ton. That makes him sound bad. That's not what I'm trying to portray, but he's just, it's just
he's
rewarding
just a quiet
to hear him.
person, and that's okay.
Yeah. So, so because of that, and because I think this movie is really well done. It has a really good story and it's funny and fun to watch. So I'm going to give this movie a 93, I think.
Okay. Yeah. So what are some of your favorite scenes?
I'm going to kind of go like chronologically here. I have some written out.
Okay.
So my first favorite scene in the movie is when they're playing baseball at the Sandlot and Smalls catches the ball for the first time. Yeah. And just seeing like the look on his face, like he can't believe it. He's so excited. And also like, you know, all the boys are kind of like, oh, like, okay, you know, like starting to accept him, I guess. I really like that scene. It just makes me smile. And then I also, I mean, the whole time when like Squints is telling about like just the origin story of the beast and things, that's a really funny sequence. Yes, that's one thing my dad quotes all the time.
Yeah.
And then I also like the scene when the other team like rides up on their bikes and they're exchanging insults and they're just,
oh my gosh, growing up with 2 older brothers, like we would hurl these insults at each other, just, you know, quoting the movie for fun, not meaning anything, but just you bob for apples in the toilet.
Yeah.
And you like it, you know, just, I mean, all sorts of stuff like that.
But I also like it even before they start exchanging the insults, like when, I'm trying to think. I think it's Squints and Ham that see them first, and their faces just like drop, and they're like, "No," you know, like
Ham is the first one. He just slams his glove onto the ground.
Yeah.
They all start walking. It's so funny.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And then, I mean, there's so many others, but the only other one I had written down was when, what's his name? Is it Mr. Myrtle?
Yeah. James Earl
James
Jones.
Earl Jones plays. I just absolutely love the scene when I love all the sequences with James Earl Jones in them, but
Yeah.
first when he says, well, you could have just knocked on the door and I would have
Right.
gotten the ball for
Right,
you or
yeah.
whatever. And they all start beating Squints up
Yes.
just because he said that he was so mean, like, don't ever talk to him, you know, like
Right.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But also I love just that he is not at all what they imagined him to be. And he's like tough, but like loving and like
Such a nice guy. Yeah.
But I love the whole sequence when he gives Smalls the ball that's signed by the Yankees and
yeah.
that like just the look on what's his name?
Who,
Not Smalls. Benny.
Yeah.
The look on Benny's face like when he sees it. Like I love that whole scene too.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. I think one of the things that's really special about this movie, and I'm trying to think through some of the movies that this could also be said about that we've covered before. Maybe one of the only other ones that comes to mind is La La Land. But this movie feels like it's just a love letter to the subject matter, which, you know, La La Land was like a love letter to old timey Hollywood jazz and musicals and stuff like that. And this feels like just an outright love letter to baseball.
yeah, for sure.
Like it's not glamorous in the slightest. It's very real, which is appreciated. It's also not like dopey, cheesy, you know, it's not this like goofy little ragtag team of just like stupid comedy. Like you're really invested in these kids. And I think a lot of that I could probably attribute to the movie starting out with Smalls narrating it as an adult.
Yeah.
Like you're viewing this story being told by an adult. So it doesn't feel like you're just watching like the Little Rascals maybe. But it really does feel like somebody who wrote the movie just was reminiscing about their childhood.
Right.
Like that's what comes through. And just through and through, I love the movie. I love the setting that it's like, is it set in the 50s or the 60s?
60s, I believe.
And it feels authentic to that era. It, you know, I love kind of the struggle that Smalls has with his stepdad. Love Kevin O'Leary, or not Kevin O'Leary, Dennis O'Leary. I love him.
Is it Dennis O'Leary or Dennis Leary?
I think it's actually O'Leary. He
Okay.
used to go by Dennis Leary, I believe.
Because if
Or
it's
maybe
not Dennis Leary, then I said it wrong earlier when I said the cast.
Maybe it is just Dennis Leary. Yeah, that's what's coming up is Dennis Leary. I don't know why I was thinking it was O'Leary. Maybe I'm thinking of Shark Tank because I said Kevin O'Leary a second ago.
Probably.
Regardless, yeah, I think he's great. He being that stepdad, like role, he fills that really well. Just kind of coming through as somebody that you can tell like there is a bit of an awkward relationship between him and Scott Smalls. But at the same time, like it doesn't seem like he's necessarily like a bad stepdad per se.
Right. Just kind of learning the ropes and
right. He's figuring it out just as much as Smalls is, as far as that relationship dynamic. And I think he does a good job of portraying that without like being too much, because you don't want him to steal the show
right
in the movie. But yeah, I mean, through and through, this movie's fantastic. It's genuinely funny and not in like childish comedy, like absolutely hilarious. Some of it is a little like, I don't know, like maybe toilet humor. I don't know what the right word is, but like, like Ham calling the other guy like, you pee drinking crap face, like some of that's a little bit stupid, but it is, these are little kids and it is funny. But the whole movie, like, just, I don't know. It's almost like a cathartic experience watching the movie because it is like, it feels so simple.
Yeah.
It's just kids in an empty lot playing baseball. Like, it doesn't take a lot to kind of like be engaged in this movie. You're just watching these kids like go about playing baseball and some of their antics. And some of it's like really, low entry is the right word. I don't know, like just meaningless, like just simple stuff, like just them playing baseball against a rival gang. Some of the movie is literally just watching that, or watching them go to the pool and then Squints, fakes drowning so that he can kiss Wendy.
Yeah.
Like just really honestly, like inconsequential stuff. And then it eventually leads to, all these antics of trying to figure out a way to get the signed baseball back from the Beast. But it's in that regard, I feel like it's almost relaxing to watch the movie just because it is like, it's not something that takes a lot of you to decide if like how much you have to pay attention to it.
Right. It's very low key.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. And it always, like you said, it's nostalgic. It brings back a lot of warm memories of, like I remember, I don't know if it was the first time I watched it, but I remember watching it and then shortly thereafter, maybe going to like Thanksgiving or Christmas or something, a family gathering with my extended family, and then like quoting that movie, and like making my older cousins laugh because I would have been little, but I was able to retain the quotes and say them convincingly, and I liked having an audience. And so anyways, it brings back some of those memories, but yeah. And I love James Earl Jones. I mean,
I do too.
Darth Vader.
He's
great. I think it's also, the actor who played Ham did an interview recently talking about the Sandlot, because there was supposed to be a series that came out on Disney Plus where they were adults, all the original actors, but it got canceled because of the strike. It went on for too long, so they ended up canceling the show. Oh, okay. So anyways, he was doing an interview in regards to the Sandlot, and he was talking about when they filmed it, they were all kids, and this would have been in 92, so it was after all the Star Wars movies had come out, and James Earl Jones was the voice of Darth Vader. And so he was an established star, and so he had his own trailer and everything. They were treating him right on set. Right. Like the star that he is. And anyways, so there was one day he said on set that they all got the guts to just go knock on his door and talk to him. And so they knocked on his door and he answered the door. And I don't remember what they said, but I think he said something to the effect of, I wish I would have looked this up so that I don't quote it wrong. So I guess take this with a grain of salt. But they said something to him where they were like, "You're Darth Vader," or "Can you do the voice?" or something like that, like referencing, but they like didn't say anything else. That's all they said. And he just looked at them and he said, "I am your father." And they all like crapped their pants and ran away. And they're like, "No way, that's crazy." And just, reinforcing that these are little kids. Right. So anyways, I think that's a fun story. But before we kind of wrap up what we're talking about, because we're going to bring Jeff on here in a moment, this movie is one of those movies that's highly quotable. Yes. Much like Elf. Do you have a favorite quote?
Oh gosh, I wish I would have known you were going to ask me this. I mean, I don't know. I don't think this would be my favorite, but I mean, one, probably the most iconic quote that's quoted the most often from this movie is "You're killing me, Smalls." Yes. And I I feel like I don't really quote this movie much, which honestly, it's mostly because besides when we just watched this yesterday, like I hadn't seen it probably since middle school, maybe beginning of high school. So, gosh, I don't know, John. Do you have a favorite one?
I don't know. I think so. There's a lot of really good ones in here. I used to know like every single insult that they hurled at each other. And there were some pretty brutal ones.
There are some brutal ones.
There's some really funny ones. Like when Ham is being the catcher in their actual game against the rival gang.
I already know what you're going to say.
He's like talking and trying to distract them. He's like, he tells one of the baseball players, he's like, you know, if I was as ugly as you, or no, he said, if I had a dog that was as ugly as you, I would shave his butt and tell him to walk backwards. I couldn't hardly believe that, but it's hilarious. But no, the one that comes to mind is when it's like really hot out and they decide to go to the pool. When Ham comes out and he's like, oh, come on, I'm baking like a toasted cheeser. My brother Josh and I would say that one. I also like the full quote from when he's talking about s'mores and he's like, you're killing me, Smalls. Because like, yes, that's the iconic line that like everybody quotes, but like the extended part where he's like, a s'more, you take the gram, you put the chocolate on the gram, then you get the mallow. You toast the mallow. Once the mallow is on fire, you blow it out, put it on the gram with another gram on top or something. Like he's doing all that. Like it's just, that whole thing is really funny to me too. Also when Squints is like, forever.
Yeah, there are some good ones for sure.
I also think, not that this is a quote, but I think it's hilarious that Timmy and Tommy, his little brother, is just like a little broken record. You know,
I mean, his nickname is Repeat. Yeah,
his nickname is Repeat in the movie, and he just says, like, the Sultan of SWAT? The Sultan of SWAT? Like, that's really funny. And also, like he just, like, they're obviously not super deep nicknames, but just all the dynamics in the movie with the different characters are great.
Yeah. I did want to ask you, have you ever seen The Sandlot 2?
I don't remember. I'm pretty sure I have seen it and the third one, which those are, I think I've seen each of them once, or both of them, I should say. And they were like direct to DVD movies, so they weren't necessarily like super good.
I was just curious because I've never seen them, so I didn't know if they compared at all.
Yeah, I mean, they're not classics.
Okay.
I think the only thing that would have been actual like quality that would come out is that series that was supposed to come out on Disney Plus, where they're all adults with the original actors and whatnot.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, but anyways, you have anything else before we bring Jeff on?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us in the studio again.
Man, I could not be more excited to talk about this movie.
We are stoked to have you. I know you love sports movies probably more than anyone I know. So I am so stoked to have a genuine fan in here, adding to what we've already done.
I mean, it's definitely the movies I watch most are sports movies. And then this is one of my favorite sports movies. So
awesome.
Perfect.
Well, I think we'll just start right away with your rating. On a scale of 1 to 100, how would you rate The Sandlot?
Guys, I wanted to give it 100 so badly.
Really?
I did. But I didn't give it. I gave it a 95 only because it's so much fun. It would get a full 100 on fun.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, it's not the best done movie. Like it's not going to win an Oscar. It's not going to, you know, it's not in that sort of category. But so I was like, what's the most I can give it? And recognizing that like cinematography and all of these things are not like amazing. So 95 is where I give it.
Okay. That is solid. I think, what did you give it?
A 93.
Okay. 93. And I gave it an 88.
I was disappointed.
Wow.
And only because like, I was comparing it against Interstellar.
Which you can't do.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's
I
why
don't
I'm
know.
like, I mean, it would have been 100 otherwise, except
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, there's like Braveheart. And
Right,
like,
yeah.
there's like really, really great movies out there.
Yeah.
The Sandlot probably should not be in that same
Right.
boat. So
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, why would you rate it as 100? What is? I mean, you kind of gave a little context there, but
yeah, if I'm just going off of my,
or sorry, I meant 95.
Yeah, 95.
You didn't give it 100.
I did not give it 100.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
The 95 part would be, it's just so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, it is pure joy from start to finish. I actually think, and I'm going to mention some of these things later, there's also really great element. They did the movie really, really well. Like it fits. It's a great story. It's interesting. It's actually well acted for kids. I
Yeah.
mean, like every part of it, I'm like, this is a really good, and there's even some parts as a sports movie that I think it's better than other sports movies that you would think, why did they go to this effort for a kid's sports movie?
Right.
That makes it, I mean, even better.
Honestly, one of the things that I said when Em and I were talking about it was that this movie just, it feels like a love letter to baseball. Honestly, like, and also kind of like the 50s, 60s era.
Yes.
Like it's very genuine, authentic, but it really just feels like it's right. You know, like they did everything right. And I hadn't really thought about what you said, but I mean, for the child acting, like it's on point in this movie.
Well, guys, like one of my favorite baseball movies is Field of Dreams.
Yeah.
The guy who plays Shoeless Joe Jackson, Ray Liotta, can't swing a baseball bat. It's the worst swing I've ever seen. And he's in that thing. These kids, these swings are good.
Yeah.
Like they're legit like baseball. Like they look like ball players in that era, especially and they kind of even do some of the swings and like it looks like from that era of baseball. And I'm like, that's just so well done. That I think you don't think about it. And that's not including, I mean, I have some other things, but the soundtrack, costumes, like just, there's some aspects of that I'm like, these are so good.
Yeah. That was something I made mention of too, was that like the soundtrack throughout, like this, you don't really talk about the score of this movie, so to speak, but like there are a few songs, like 3 or 4 songs that when they come on, it's like, yes, like this is perfect.
And by 3 or 4, you meant every song that comes on in my mind. But so I'll go into it a little bit, but like every time Wendy Peppercorn comes on the screen, there's a Drifters song.
Yes.
And they're perfectly timed, like exactly what they should be. They're the camp out, the Lion Sleeps Tonight.
Yes.
I mean, what a great song, Over the Beast that's sleeping.
Yes.
In there, America the Beautiful by Ray Charles.
Yeah.
On the 4th of July game is so good. So I just think, there's elements of this that are just really well done.
Yeah. I agree 100%. Okay. So we're going to jump into trivia.
Sure.
Okay. So we do have 6 trivia questions for you.
I'm nervous, guys.
I think you're going to nail them. At least
That makes me even
the
more
majority
nervous. The
of
pressure.
them.
Okay.
Before we were recording, Jeff shared with us that he has probably seen this movie 400 times.
Easily.
Yeah.
That's on the low end.
So I'm certain you can at least get some of them.
We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Em, you want to start?
Sure. Okay. So I wanted to see if you could name all 9 of the boys. You can use nicknames.
Okay, great. Hamilton the Babe Porter, place catcher. Kenny DeNunez is the pitcher. First base is Timmy. Third base is Tommy. That might be flipped. Tommy might be first. Third might be Timmy. Second base is Bertram Weeks. Shortstop is Yaya. Left field is Smalls. Center field is Benny the Jet. And then right field is Squints Palidores.
Wow.
Okay, that was impressive.
That was the one that I was like, if you can name all the kids, I will be so impressed.
I'll give you positions, bro.
You had it. That was amazing. Yeah, because like going into it, I was like, yeah, everybody knows Ham and and Squints. They have great nicknames, but like Bertram, like I could never remember that.
Oh man, Bertram Weeks, man, he's so good. I love it. He plays second base too. That was my position.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, this one's a gimme.
Okay. Oh man.
But I promise you, like if you don't get this, but you got all these kids and their positions, I will be disappointed. So finish this quote. Heroes get remembered, but
legends never die.
Yeah, of course. I told you it's a gimme.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's on one of my quotables.
Okay, so next one was, where was Bill going away on business when he left Smalls as the man of the house? What city?
I don't know.
It's in Illinois.
Oh, is it Chicago?
It is.
Okay,
It
that's
is.
actually what I was in my mind. I was thinking Chicago
Yeah.
or LA, and I'm like, yeah, okay, Chicago.
Yes.
Yep, Chicago.
Okay.
Now, honestly, I should just take this one off because you already said it, but I'll still give it to you. When Smalls is invited to play baseball for the first time, what position does Benny tell him to play?
Yeah, left field.
Yeah.
'Cause
Well, left.
left center.
There you
Because
go,
he's normally in center field, but if they're not playing,
Right, yeah.
left center.
Yeah,
So if you guys don't know, left field is where you stick the worst fielder.
Yes. Yeah.
So
I played
because
left field.
I know. My first year in high school, varsity
Yes.
baseball was left field.
I played second a little too, but I played left.
Yeah. It's where you hide the guy.
Yes. Yeah. It was my first year. They're like, yeah, we'll stick you. Yeah.
I could hit, but I couldn't do much else, and so they stuck me in left field.
Yeah. Actually, that was like the best thing I could do was hit, but they would never play me. Oh. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, they should have.
My coach he played minor leagues for the Yankees.
Okay.
So he was like an amazing pitcher.
Yeah.
And I hit a home run off of him.
Oh, wow.
And he didn't play me after that.
Well, those guys are competitive.
Okay.
Okay, next one. What team does Benny play for when he grows up?
Oh, the Dodgers.
Yes.
Nice.
correct.
Very nice. Okay, last one. When Mr. Myrtle gives Smalls the replacement signed baseball, what year and what team?
1927 Yankees.
Nice. There you go.
Perfect.
See, you were worried about this.
I know.
You got all
the
of them.
Chicago one.
Yeah.
I did not. Oh, man. Dennis
Yeah.
O'Leary got me again.
Yes. That was great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Those are great questions. That was fun.
Yeah. Okay. So jump into favorite scenes. Yep. All right. What are your favorite scenes?
All right. Well, I've got 8 of them, so I may not give you all of them, but I'll start.
right.
I love the opening. I
Yes.
think the opening right now, again, nostalgic,
Yeah.
baseball loving. They open. He's talking about Babe Ruth
Yep.
and the famous pointing, that sort of thing, which is
Yep.
foreshadowing that Babe Ruth is going to show up in the
Yes.
movie,
Yep.
which is great. And the ball is signed by Babe Ruth. Like, it's just
Yeah.
such a great little part there. And then they use pickle in they're going to actually show Benny the Jet Rodriguez in a pickle. So, Emily, if you're a baseball fan, a pickle is when you get in a rundown. But a pickle is also a tight spot. And so they're using it as like kind of a double entendre, like Benny the Jet is in a pickle as they
Right.
start off the movie,
Yeah.
but then they're going to get in this really difficult spot with the Babe Ruth, losing the Babe Ruth baseball. And then the music, finger popping, like it's just
Yes.
a great
Yes.
sort of doo-wop 60s kind of right into. I think it's so good.
Yeah.
I love that. So that's a favorite. I mean, right out of the gate, it just gets me in the right mood.
Yeah.
Some of these baseball, I think Rookie of the Year has a great baseball centric start. Just some of those movies, I think starting out the right way is important. I love when Benny hits a fungo right into Small's glove.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Are you serious?" He can't throw. And they're like, "Are you serious? Why are we doing this? You're wasting your time." He puts it right in his glove.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, Kenny Denunez gets the ball and he goes, "Yeah, I knew it the whole time." Like, he's great, of course. Like, I did this.
I knew it.
That's a great scene.
Yeah.
I think probably the most memorable scene of the whole movie is the s'mores, the camp out.
Yes.
Yes.
I think that's
Yeah.
one of the best lines in the
Yes.
entire movie. So one of the quotables that I have is where Small says, "I haven't had anything yet.
Yeah.
How can I have some more if nothing?"
Yeah.
And then he gives me, which I tell my kids probably 3 times a week, "You're killing me, Smalls."
Yeah.
This follows that
Yeah.
right after it. I think that camp out, like every part of that is just so much fun.
Yes.
Apparently they had to film it. The s'more scene 12 times because everyone was just busting up laughing
Laughing.
so
Really?
hard.
Yeah.
That is
doing it,
awesome.
which is great. So I think that's great. The night game is just a scene. If you're a baseball lover,
Yeah.
fireworks.
Yes.
Hamilton Porter just grabbing food from all the tables as he's trying to run to the game.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
Tons of fun. The second best scene that I think though, like Camp Out, I think is such a great scene and is really important. And then I think the game against the school kids,
Yes.
the kind of
Yeah.
prep school kids
Yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
The trash talking before
Oh my
Amazing.
goodness.
is
Love
so
that.
good. I would if this was I give you the whole rundown, but I'm not going to do this. I know the entire all of that, and then it
Yeah.
just flows right into the game.
Yes.
which is we quoted this before. They're
Yeah.
just parts of Hamilton Porter talking to the
Yes.
batters and
Yeah.
their swings and how they hit and the music and all of that. I just think is so good.
Yeah.
I honestly think the baseball game between the Sandlot and the school kids might be my favorite sequence in the film.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the most memorable like it's kind of like the heart of the film in some ways. Like it's just so fun. It's so good. Then I think the second, like the scene that then comes right out of that is that last chase scene with Benny the Jet and Hercules the dog.
Yeah.
I didn't even, I mean, there's a whip sound where he begins and goes off, and then he jumps over kind of this Western, sort of thing. He jumps over the scene. And then as soon as Hercules, or over the fence, as soon as Hercules jumps the fence, the dog, they start Wipeout. Yeah. Which again, if you're in my generation, like everybody knows that little, like that little drum scene. And then they just kind of go through it, and it's like, it's awesome. So I think that whole scene, the movie that they're watching in the theater is the Night of the Wolf Man. It's like a werewolf and a dog is chasing. Like it's just so like, I think that scene is awesome. Like it's tons of fun. And then I think the one that gets me though is when they meet Mr. Myrtle.
Yes.
So if there's an emotional element to the film, it's like Mr. Myrtle at the end for me is so good. When he, James Earl Jones, I think one of my favorite characters he plays. It's so short, but I love it. He has this like sort of cocky grin that's just like, he does this kind of move every once in a while that's so like, it's just a ton of fun. And then he has some great lines in there too. Like when the kid says that he lost to Babe Ruth ball, he goes, "Oh, you're not in trouble. You're dead where you stand." Which is just, and his voice is just so good. And then he gives him the, 1927 ball. And actually right before that, he goes, they're like, "Oh yeah, the ball was signed by Babe Ruth." And he goes, "You mean George?" And it's like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, honestly, I think I didn't mention this earlier when it was just Emily and I, but one of my favorite scenes in the entire film too is there in the ending where they're in Mr. Myrtle's home and, they're like, "No, we can't take this." And he's like, "No, trust me. You see all this stuff I got? You know, I've got some good stuff." And they kind of talk and he eventually just says, "You know what? How about you guys come by once a week, you talk baseball with me, and we'll call it an even trade." That one is just like so near and dear to my heart, especially because like when I did healthcare and I transitioned out of hospital care and did home care, it reminded me a lot of my patients that, because there are a lot of lonely people out there that are just by themselves. And I would have a lot of stuff like that where they're just like asking me like, "Hey, what's new?" And just like that relationship, it reminded me a lot of that. So that was endearing to my heart.
It's like a previous generation to the next generation. Yeah. I mean, and if you grew up like I did collecting baseball cards, and I still do, and go to baseball card shops and signed balls. And I mean, it just felt so nostalgic. And I mean, to be able to talk to a guy, like it's just, you're right. I mean, it is the part where I'm like, I mean, I don't think I get choked up because it's not sad.
Right.
But it's great. Like my heart is warmed like in that scene, like it's really good. I also think like it finishes really well, like giving an update on all of the kids, the movie, kind of letting, and they're so funny. Like, Hamilton, the Babe Porter becomes a professional wrestler. Kenny DeNunez coaches a Little League team, the Heaters. And then the final scene where, Benny the Jet steals Holmes and they give steals home and they give the thumbs up to each other. And Smalls has the worst hat I've ever seen in my entire life still on his head, has the picture on the wall. I mean, it's just, I'm telling you what, I mean, that's why I'm like, the movie starts really, really well and ends really, and it feels finished and full and satisfied. And I'm like, for a kid's sports movie, like I still am just like, that's pretty impressive. Like
it really is.
It is done really well. So those are probably there's not much I don't like about the movie. Almost every baseball season I'm pretty excited about. And I didn't even mention the pool scene and some things like that are just a ton of funny. I mean, my wife and I were cracking up. We watched this past weekend where Hamilton the Babe Porter jumps into the pool and his voice cracks at like the highest decibel you can imagine. It's just there's so much that's great about it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, on that note, do you have any dislikes? You said you don't have a lot. Do you have any?
Yeah. So I actually don't love the stepdad. I think he plays that character well because I don't like him in that. But there's just a few things that he does that I'm like, when he's teaching his kid to throw, like he's like chucking the ball at Smalls he's never caught before.
Right.
And then he throws a curveball. Yeah. It's like literally like I wrote it down as, because we actually, like my family would quote this, "You got to watch out for that curveball."
Right.
Like, and he's like, the kid doesn't know how to play baseball.
Right.
Why are you throwing him a curveball?
Yes.
Might as well throw him a knuckleball,
I mean, it's just ridiculous. So and then he's like, early on, he doesn't want him touching his stuff and some of that. I'm just like, and I get it. It's actually a great part of the film because at the very end, they have this restored relationship. And that's a great kind of, a little bit of like a poignant sort of ending when they kind of he and Smalls like kind of have a great relationship at the end. But his character's not my favorite. And then I don't like the scene where they chew tobacco. Now, I should let you know, I'm a sympathetic puker. So if I see someone else puke, I want to puke.
Yeah.
So the whole scene is just gross to me. Like, I'm just like, this is I know it's funny. And it's my kids, we watched it. They thought it was great. But it's just like, I'm like, oh man, I could do without that scene.
I can't watch it either.
Yeah. So I actually have a funny story about my baseball team and a chain of puking. Oh, gosh. So there was one night we got together for team bonding. We were hanging out, just, doing like playing pickup basketball, doing all sorts of just fun games, whatnot. And we got bored. It was getting into the wee hours. We're in high school, and it was in the summer. So it was, pull an all-nighter, whatever. It was that type of thing. And we're getting bored. And one of the guys is like, you should convince Josh to do the gallon challenge, one of the guys on our team. And we're like, okay. And he was the type of guy that like, if you issued the challenge, like he's going to do it.
Yeah. Right.
And so we talked him into it. We're like, you should do the gallon challenge. And he's like, okay. He ran to like a 24-hour gas station, bought a gallon of milk, came back, and he just started chugging it. And so for those of you who don't know, the gallon challenge, he tried to drink an entire gallon of milk in less than 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And so he's chugging, and I'm telling you, he got down to maybe less than a quarter.
Okay.
Less than
he did well.
A fifth.
He gave it a valiant effort.
He did really good. And then he just lost it.
Yeah.
And it was one of those, like, you knew it was coming. So everybody had their phone out.
Yeah.
And this is when Snapchat was really big.
Okay.
And Snapchat videos loop once you stop recording.
Oh, man.
So one guy got it just perfect where it was right when he puked. He got it. And then we're all laughing so hard while that video is looping in the background.
Yeah.
And because that sound kept going, 4 other guys just, they just lost it.
I would have been that way. Not from the sound, just from watching. Like, if there is a scene in which I have skipped most in my 400 plus times of watching the Sandlot, it's that scene. Like, it's not my favorite scene.
Yeah.
But again, it's still a great scene. It's just not, I don't enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, I will say, I made mention in the beginning of the episode that I did like Kevin O'Leary.
Okay.
Or not Kevin O'Leary.
Is it Dennis O'Leary?
Dennis O'Leary.
Okay.
I said Kevin earlier. Yes, Dennis, that I did like him as a stepdad because you don't like him.
Yeah.
I was like, I appreciate that he didn't try to steal the show as an actor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He does a great job. And I think it's just, he does a great job of making me not really like him.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, he's not the most likable character. He also, I don't know, his whole look and everything of that, I'm just like, man, you're just not a guy I would like.
Right.
I just think he's got that kind of, there's a smugness about him that I struggle with in that movie.
Right. So. Yeah. But I have to agree, like, as far as like somebody who myself, like, I really want to be a dad. I have a great dad. And like watching some of that, I'm like, yeah, you're terrible.
Yeah. Come on, buddy.
Like, now, this is awful.
Yeah. As a stepdad coming in, like, I'm sure the situation is hard, and he redeems himself by the end.
Yes. Yeah. But anyways, okay. Well, I think that's all we have. So it's kind of,
you have more, Jeff.
But it's kind of open. It's open season. So
Okay.
whatever you want to talk about, just go.
Can I
for
talk
it.
about more stuff I like about the movie?
Yes, of course.
That's really all I want to do the whole time. I think the settings are great. So the Sandlot itself is just perfectly sort of designed. The look, it's nostalgic. It just looks like the perfect Sandlot to play baseball. Like it's just, and really I think throughout, like I mentioned the night game, the little July 4th festival in the streets that they're running through and picking up is just great. That sort of public pool, park pool, like that's exactly the pools that I grew up with in the summer, like the little neighborhood pools. I'm like, oh yeah, I know those pools from growing up like so well. Like just every little part of the different scenery. I'm like, man, that is even Mr. Myrtle's house in that room. I told you it looks like a baseball card shop.
Yeah.
A lot of those baseball card shops are kind of old and like a usually they're like in an off sort of spot building, like not a great building and kind of torn down. And it's just, I'm like, oh man, the scenes were great. The little tree house above where they do the camp out. Like, I'm just like, man, the settings are so good. I don't know what the actual word for this. Like, all I could come up with costumes. It's probably not called costumes. Whatever the dress is.
Wardrobe.
Wardrobe. Is, I think so. And again, I'm not like much to think about that when I'm watching a sports movie, but I'm like, man, this fits. I was thinking about it, honestly, in light of this podcast, watching the movie even a little bit differently, but like Benny's look, like I still wish I was as cool as Benny.
Yes.
Like I'm 40 years old and I was watching this movie and I'm like, man, like that dude is still cool. Like I still want to be 12-year-old, whatever, however old he is. I mean, he looks like he's 19, but I still want to be that. Small's hat is I've already mentioned it. It's the worst hat I've ever seen.
It's horrible.
Period. Like it's so good. Squints' look is so good. Like so iconic. Ham wears these like mismatched plaid that's just so fitting. I don't know if you guys noticed it, but Kenny DeNunez has a KC Monarchs hat. So a Kansas City Monarchs hat, which is a Negro League. That's like Satchel Paige and like one of the most famous kind of Negro League. It is, I think that hat actually like became like a pretty hot item and like auctions and things like that. Like it's a really famous, it's a great hat. So just even down to those things, the gloves that they played with, the bats, like they're older, they look right. I mean, it was just so good. I've already mentioned the music, and then I think I mentioned a little bit like the kids, like they're legit baseball. Like they really do have the swings down. So there's just some things like that. I mean, that sports movies, I think the hardest thing to do in sports, a sports movie is make it believable.
Yep.
Like, this guy's never played this sport before and you can tell, or like, this is just not how it would be. And it's like, man, this is actually for a kid's movie. Like it feels real. If you grew up loving baseball, you're like, like that's what we would do. That's what this looks like. That's how we play. That's how we talk. Like there's just a lot of parts about it that I think is great. I have a quotables section. Yeah. I've already mentioned a few. There's so many more here. There's a lot that I wanted to mention, but I'm like, probably shouldn't. But don't be a goofus. Yes. I can't tell you when he first gets out on there, he's like, don't be a goofus. Don't Smalls this. Yes. Yeah. I just think that's great. Yeah. I tell like our boys and I, we will repeat that often to each other. I've already mentioned, got to watch out for that curveball. Like we would say those sorts of things all the time. You mentioned, I mean, the great line, heroes get remembered, but legends never die. Yep. That's just such a good line. Yep. So in the scene with Squints, when he sort of fakes drowning, and then I think it's Bertram Weeks that says, he looks like a dead fish. Yeah. It might be, I'm not sure, but like it is. Yeah, that's such a great line. And he really does look like a dead fish. We will repeat that as families every once in a while. Like, looks like a dead fish. That will so happen. Funny. And then you play ball like a girl. Right. I mean,
all-time classic.
Sorry, Emily. I know. Like it's okay. You know, it's not one of those that maybe has like. It's not as good as maybe it was back then, but it's like, oh man, it's just such a great line. And then their reaction, like everybody and they have said horrible, like you mix your weenies with your mama's toe jam is one of the lines. Yes. And then they say you play ball with like a girl and everybody goes quiet. Yes. So good. So there's so much good quotable stuff. A couple of trivia things that I just had noted when I was watching this again. The older and younger Benny are played by brothers.
Oh,
really?
So that's why they look so much. So the last Benny at the end of the movie is his older brother.
That's awesome.
And that's why they look so much alike. The director had the actors for Smalls and Benny get together 3 or 4 weeks before they started filming the movie so that they could develop a friendship and a camaraderie before the rest of the guys. And it actually like all the other actors were like, they were like, had a different level of like it shows out in the movie and they remained lifelong friends.
That's awesome.
So that just a really cool kind of part of it. The last one I had, there's actually two actors in Sandlot who are also in Field of Dreams, which I think Field of Dreams is the best baseball movie of all time. Okay. Like I think that's the most iconic. Yeah. I think for me would be the best movie of baseball movie of all time. It's James Earl Jones obviously is like a main character in Field of Dreams, but the guy who plays Babe Ruth is one of the ghost players in Field of Dreams. Yes. And so it's like, so there's an overlap there between two of my favorite baseball movies that is just fun. Rookie of the Year was released that same year.
Was it really?
So two of my favorite kind of kids baseball movies were released in that same year. I think 1993, I think is when it is. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, just great.
Which on that note, when I was a little kid, I always thought that they somehow got video of Babe Ruth.
Like, you thought he was real.
I thought that was, I was like, oh my gosh.
Is that the real Babe Ruth?
Right. Yeah.
So good. Well, it does. I mean, that guy does a great job. Like, it's just such a fun, like, it's great. They did great things. Even in the Mr. Myrtle's, where he's the picture where Mr. Myrtle is between, I want to say it's between Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, and he's in the middle picture. Mm-hmm. That's an actual real picture. That they edited, and I forget who the guy. There's a player that's supposed to be there in between those two guys, and they just put him in. So they just did a great job on all of those, like just iconic stuff that's there. I have the last time I was here, I did sort of my like Mount Rushmore of sports films. Yeah, so I have two sort of Mount Rushmores. I have a Mount Rushmore of just baseball movies.
Okay,
Sandlot's on it. I really do think it's that good. Field of Dreams is on it. Yeah. I think it's iconic. Moneyball. Aaron Sorkin's like one of my favorite writers. Yeah. Moneyball was a great, super interesting book, but even better movie. Chris Pratt is awesome in it. Yeah. If you guys ever do a Moneyball episode, I'm in, ready to come.
Spoiler alert, it's on the schedule for next season.
It is.
Guys, you're about to have a third visit from Jeff Strickland. I think Moneyball is a great movie as well. And then I love, it was hard for me to pick the last. I love The Natural and I love 8 Men Out. Yeah. But 8 Men Out is the one I went through. I think it's just a great sort of classic baseball movie as well. But then I decided to have a little fun with you guys. Okay. I have a Mount Rushmore of kids sports movies.
Yes.
Awesome. And there are, because I think I told you guys before, I do have, I think 20 baseball movies probably ish. Yeah. And I think I probably have over 50 sports movies of some sense. Yeah. And so I have a lot of these, but my favorite baseball one, which is clear, is Sandlot. Like that's the best kids baseball movie that there is. Yep. Rookie of the Year is great. Yep. Angels in the Outfield is actually great with kids. Yes. Like now that I didn't really love it that much, but now with kids, like it's pretty fun. And then Little Big League is awesome. If you probably haven't seen Little Big League.
I haven't. No.
A 12-year-old's grandpa passes away and he becomes the owner of the Twins and he makes himself the coach of the Twins. Oh, wow. It's so great. Like it's so fun. So it's a great little kids. And then Bad News Bears is the old Bad News Bears. The classic. With Walter Matthau. So great. But so Sandlot, best kids baseball movie. I think Mighty Ducks has to be on probably all three, but mainly the first one. Yeah. So for hockey, that gets into my, I try to pick a different sport for each one of these. Mount Rushmore. So Mighty Ducks is in there. Little Giants for football is so good. Rick Moranis. And I mean, they're just arguing back and forth. It feels, Little Giants for me feels a little bit like Sandlot for like Little League, baseball, that sort of thing. Little Giants feels like for Pee Wee football. Like it's just like, oh man, this feels kind of real to me. And then Karate Kid.
Oh yeah, that's
I think
classic.
Karate Kid is the martial arts. So there are a lot of other like kids sports movies. We talked about The Big Green and out there, but man, those four are actually really good movies.
You know, as I kind of think about it, there are a lot of there's a wide variety of sports movies, even like comedies. That it seems like there's a lot. You know, you got like Kicking and Screaming, The Benchwarmers. What was the basketball one with Will Ferrell?
I never even saw that.
I didn't see it either, but that's another one. Yes. Just like there's a wide variety. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they're coming out like Adam Sandler just came out with Hustle, which I
heard that was really good.
It's actually a really good basketball movie.
I haven't watched it. But
it's really realistic. It's well done. Adam Sandler's like a huge hoop. Like he's a hooper. Like he plays and gets into it. Yeah. And then I mean, you really do. You have like sports movies. You have like classic ones, right? But then you have so many like fun. Like I mean, you even have romantic comedy, like Fever Pitch with Jimmy Fallon. Like you have all sorts of different kinds of just sports movies that kind of fall into every category, like really? Drama. Yeah. Like, I mean, Moneyball.
Biopics.
Yeah. Moneyball was really good. Like as a movie and like storytelling, everything like that with pretty prime actors. Yeah. I mean, across the boat, you have almost every type of movie. So yeah. And I think I've watched most of them. Yeah. So, and we didn't even get to like Rocky and I mean, all sorts of things. So I think for me, sports movies, because they give you like the drama in the sport itself. Like I just watched Glory Road is another really great basketball movie. Like there's just, they give you kind of everything. And And it always, for me too, I love the movies that just like make me want to sort of stand up and cheer at the end.
Yeah.
And a lot of sports movies can kind of bring that sort of like, let's go.
Yeah. Right.
So, and Sandlot, I mean, honestly, for me, like, I think Sandlot is probably like, if somebody watched, especially if you grew up when I grew up, and I'm getting to that age apparently, but there is like just a nostalgia aspect of like, yeah, like that's like the wonder of like childhood and baseball and even America. And like, there's just that kind of iconic, like, it just makes you sort of love baseball, America, and apple pie. Like, it's just like, it's just a really like, yeah, I love it.
One thing I will, on that note, add in is just that, like, growing up, we lived out in the country. My family did. We lived in the woods, and then I'm the youngest of 5. So once all my siblings went off to college, our house was much too big for 3 people. So my parents sold the house. We moved into town, and I was actually not happy about it.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in the woods.
Right.
You know, I just ran around with my dog all day, every day.
Yeah.
You know, I'd have my BB gun, I'd shoot trees and stuff. Like, I did my own thing.
Yeah.
And we moved into town, and I was not happy about it. And I would have been like 13, you know, middle school age. So Sandlot era, you know, like kind of in that neighborhood. And I was friends with people from school, and we would, after I moved to town, we started playing like pickup football games just on the lot.
Yeah.
It wasn't baseball, but it was like almost a daily occurrence where it was like, hey, you know, get your homework done and then let's go play pickup football.
Yeah.
We'd just shoot a text and then we'd all meet up. We'd walk to McDonald's afterwards or something. It's like, this movie really reminded me of how much like I miss like doing stuff like that and how awesome that was.
I mean, I mean, I did the same thing. We had and I lived on Main Street in Crawfordsville, so small town USA. And like right behind us, we had essentially a house that had bought the lot next to them just to have it as a bigger yard in downtown. And so we'd play football there almost every day through the summer. But what we would do that just, I mean, honestly felt almost exactly like Sandlot. I mean, me and 10 to 15 little kids, probably all late elementary, early middle school, we would grab our bikes and we'd ride across town all the way to the east side of town to where like our little league baseball fields were.
Yeah.
And we would do home run derbies and things like that all day.
That's awesome.
There was a Hardee's where we'd get the cinnamon raisin biscuits from Hardee's, like, which are still one of my favorite foods of all time, and just play. And we'd go to somebody's grandma's house afterward and get like a Coca-Cola and then go back up and play. I mean, it literally felt like, so when I see this, I'm like, man, I remember like being out there talking trash, like having fun with my buddies, like riding our bikes to a place. I mean, it's just literally bat and glove on the, back in a bag and everything like that. I'm like, oh man, this was like, it just, you add some Starburst and, I'd have been like, this is my childhood. It was great. So
that's awesome. Well, is there anything else you want to cover?
I mean, there's so much more. No, that's it. I mean, there is, but it was so good, man. It was fun to watch the movie again through kind of different eyes, be looking more into it. And then, to be able to talk about it is so much fun.
Sweet. Well, that's all we have. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us again. This was an absolute blast. I really appreciate everything that you brought with, and I can tell that this is just like, this is such a core memory for you.
The last movie, I even forget what movie I was on here talking about the last time. It was it was the
American Underdog. Yeah.
I had to do a little bit of research for that one. Like I had to I didn't have to do anything for this, guys. Like this was just,
this one.
I watched it with my boys this weekend because that's what we do. And that was it. I'm in, I'm ready to go. Let's do this.
That's great. So awesome. Well, Jeff, thank you for joining us. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course.
All right. Well, that wraps up the Sandlot. A big thanks again to Jeff for coming on and talking with us. We always have the best time talking with you, all things movies. So thank you.
It was a lot of fun.
And next week, you guys can look forward to our season 2 finale. Woo-hoo. We are covering Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and we're having yet another guest joining us. So
I can't believe we're already at the end of season 2.
I can't either.
It's gone by so fast, and the season 2 finale will mark 40 episodes for us on the Married to Movies podcast.
It's crazy. Time flies.
Yes, it is. But Yes, as Emily said, we're going to be having a guest next week, and it is another guest who has already been on the show. We are going to be having Jordan Bewley, who is a film buff just like us. So we're really excited to have him. And what movie are we going to be covering?
I already said it, but I'll say it again. Captain America, the Winter Soldier. It is streaming on Disney+. So make sure to check that out if you would like to watch it ahead of time. But I think that's all we've got. So thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.
Have a great week. Bye.